Brace yourself. Gonna blast up anytime now. Collect yourself. Things will never be the same in a sad, sad world.
This is a good taco. This is a bad taco. What's the difference between the two? Well, if you ask Aristotle, you'll remember that every being has what's called a final cause. The final cause is the goal or purpose or meaning of that being. It doesn't come to the being from the outside. The being has its final cause just because of the kind of being that it is. What's the final cause of a taco? Well, it's to provide nutrition. You eat it and it builds up your body. And it's to provide pleasure. Tacos are good. They taste good. You get joy and happiness from eating them. A being is good or bad for Aristotle, depending on how well it fulfills or lives out its final cause, its purpose. The taco on the left is successful at accomplishing its purpose. And yes, it's almost as if the taco wants to provide nutrition and to give pleasure. Aristotle doesn't think a taco actually has a mind, but it is as if every being, even a taco, has a goal, has something that it, quote unquote, wants to do. The taco on the left has succeeded, so it is good. The taco on the right has failed, and so it is bad. This is a good haircut. This is a bad haircut. What's the purpose or final cause of a haircut? Well, part of it is to keep cool and keep the hair out of your face. So any haircut that takes enough off meets that purpose. But the main purpose, I think, for most of us in a haircut is to look good. With that final cause of haircut, I think all would agree that this is a bad haircut. This is a good person. This is a bad person. Hopefully you're picking up on the pattern here now. Aristotle would say that the reason Dr. King is a good person and Hitler is a bad person is because Dr. King successfully lived out his purpose or his goal as a human being, his final cause. Hitler, on the other hand, failed as a human being. And that's not just because it's not at all because he lost the war. It's not that kind of success or failure. Even if he had won the war, even when he was winning, when he was at the peak of his power and his own plans were being successful, he was still a failure as a human being. He was still failing to live out his purpose that comes from his form, his humanness. And therefore, because he does not live out that final cause, he is a bad person. Just as my taco was a bad taco and my haircut is a bad haircut. So what is that final cause, that purpose for those of us who are not tacos and who are not haircuts, but who are humans? Well, you might remember this from the beginning of the year. Happiness is the meaning and purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. And here, remember, end means end as in final cause. Happiness is the meaning and purpose of life, the whole aim and goal of human existence. To see what that practically looks like, I'm going to send you off to another video from Brian Greene at Crash Course in just a minute. Mr. Greene is going to introduce you to Aristotle's concept of virtue. Virtue as the root of what it means to be a successful and therefore good and therefore happy person. Because for Aristotle, your final cause, your goal is to flourish, to thrive, to live your best, most meaningful life. To be a good taco is to be a successful taco, which means to nourish your body. To be a good person is to be a successful and happy person, which means to do good. It is goodness through virtue, Aristotle says, that will give you that happy, fulfilled, meaningful life. If Aristotle were here right now and knew about World War II, he would say, somewhere inside we know already, by virtue of what we are, that somebody like Hitler, who plays on people's fears, who stirs up hatred, who takes people's rights away and murders millions, cannot be a happy person. No matter how much he may lie to himself and tell himself, this is what I want, in those actions, he is failing to thrive as a human being. He is not meeting his final cause. The way to do that is through virtue, which Brian Greene is going to tell us about. Virtues are powers that come from the fact that we are human, come from our form. And this is what I love about Aristotle's virtue ethics. It's very humanistic and very humane. Aristotle says, doing good and avoiding evil is not about following rules that somebody else forces on you from outside. A rule-based ethics, that's for children who don't understand why not to play in the street other than because I said so. For adults and those of us who are growing into adulthood, Aristotle says, look to virtue. Look to making those choices that will allow you to thrive the way you were meant to just because you're a person. And avoid their opposites, which is vices. Brian Greene will tell you all about that too. Basically, virtue, that's the good stuff you do. Vice, bad stuff you do. Okay? You ever heard Miami Vice? It's talking about they're going after bad stuff. All right? The adjective form of vice is vicious. You're probably more familiar with vicious, which means viceful, than you are with vice. That's about to change. Brian Greene's going to introduce you to the idea of the golden mean. Aristotle says that the virtuous choices, the good decisions, the right actions that will help us to flourish, to fulfill our final cause, our purpose as humans, and therefore to be happy, can always be found in the middle path between two extremes. The extremes are vices, evil choices. And the middle path, what he calls the golden mean, is the good choice, the virtuous choice, the path to happiness. So, for example, hopefully you want to have a nice school life balance. Okay? You do your work, you're successful at your work, but you also have a meaningful personal social life. On one extreme, you've got the person who blows off school, never does his work, and fails. That's one extreme. That's a vice. The other extreme, the opposite of that vice, is also a vice. You have the person who stays up all night doing schoolwork, never gets any rest, never has any leisure time, never nurtures relationships with any friends. Aristotle says that's also a vice. Both of these are evil, not because someone said you're not supposed to do them, not because there's a rule against them. Again, rules are for little children, Aristotle says. They're evil because they stop you from happiness, which is your goal. Okay? That's how to become a good person. In the middle path, someone has the virtue of a school life balance. I'm going to turn you over to Brian Green. His video is only 10 minutes. I am going to try to make this video link to it at the end. I don't know how to do that yet. Hopefully I will by the time I upload it. We will find out if I am a good YouTuber or a bad YouTuber. But you'll also find the link to this video in the description of my video, in the first comment of my video, and on Edmodo, or search YouTube for Crash Course Philosophy, Aristotle, Virtue, Ethics. All right. Have fun with Mr. Green, and I will talk to you next time. I'll hop on Zoom on Tuesday so we can talk about this together.
Around a lot a bit, trying to make the pieces fit to a puzzle with a million missing pieces. When I'm feeling fine is when I discover that I'm afraid to blow my cover, and there's something very wrong with this. So sit back in your hole, or get back in your cave. If I'm going down, I'm taking someone with me.